do this.
Jonathan, I'm going to tempt fate, so please reciprocate with me and give me a short answer. Does that kind of argument mean anything to your perspective?
I think you have to look at all of the times that Israel has tried to make peace. In 1967, after the Six-Day War, Israel went to Khartoum in September and offered to give back the disputed territories. And it was met with the three no's. No to peace, no to negotiation, and no to recognition. And there have been many, many cases since then. At Camp David in 2000, Israel offered 91% of the West Bank back with a land swap, and Arafat said no. So let's just establish the facts, not the myths, and the facts are that Israel has many, many times tried to make peace.
I want to respond to Hajar's
Very
point
briefly.
about paranoia.
Very briefly.
Because let me tell you, I'm happy in my skin. I'm third-generation American. And unlike anybody else here, I grew up in a society, I don't know if there are any Americans here, but I'm very happy in my skin. Believe me, I'm not paranoid, but when I talk about Khmelnytsky, and I talk about the pogroms, and I talk about the Holocaust, did it not happen? Were Eskimos put into camps? I'm sorry, it's part of my heritage. But I'm not paranoid. I would love to see peace.
Okay,
I don't believe this paranoia
let's
thing
now
at
have
all.
a discussion about how we might get there. I'd like us now to take a look at the two-state solution, which almost all of the parties, with the main exception of the present Israeli government, say they are committed to. Now, in reality, and because of the extent of Israel's still ongoing colonization of the occupied West Bank, is it the two-state solution alive or dead? And if it's dead, what? Ilan?
Well, the two-state solution is still alive because the international community, or the powers that be in the international community, still believe that this is the only solution. So when the powers believe that something is still alive, then it is still alive, even if it's hardly breathing. And they can, as you know, this is modern medicine, so they can keep it alive for a little bit longer, although I think it is dead for all intents and purposes. I think that we have two groups, interesting two groups of people who are now pushing forward an alternative solution. One is people who always believed that in this small land of Palestine and Israel, there is no reason in the 21st century that two people cannot share a land and live within one political system. And there are those who I call the desperados, those who really believe that Israelis and Palestinians should live apart, but it doesn't work because of the Israeli policies on the ground. There is really no space today that can be called Palestinians, either in the West Bank, and not even the Gaza Strip can be called a Palestinian space anymore. And therefore, they know that this is not going to work. How we move towards a one-state solution is a long answer, which you don't want to hear right now, I'm sure. But I think it is important to understand what we are in a twilight zone. Everyone who visits the place, is a student of the place, or lives in the place, understands that the two-state solution is not going to work. How do we move towards an alternative solution? It's something we have to work on.
Well, let's come back to that, Ilan. Yeah. Jonathan, do you have in your mind a concept of what a two-state solution actually is?
Well, I think that Israel has tried very hard to find a two-state solution. And people forget, when people talk about Netanyahu, the present Prime Minister, not believing in a two-state solution, people forget the Wye Valley Memorandum in 1998, which Benjamin Netanyahu negotiated. And the fact is that the right has been much better than the left in Israel at making peace. And the fact is that Netanyahu is signed up to the roadmap. And there is a speech which, by the time you see this, will have been made. And I think you will see that he is absolutely committed to a two-state solution. And I ask people who talk about a one-state solution, how many Israelis, Arabs and Jews, are you prepared to see dead to have a one-state solution? Because that is the only way it will happen, over dead bodies.
Well, I think there is another scenario. I think in what Ilan was referring to, in a one-state solution, which is a state for all Jews there and Arabs there now, all enjoying equal civil, human, political rights. I would have thought that's the stuff that real dreams are made of. Am I mad?
No, you're not mad, but I think really what is important, and this is very important because we are moving here very dangerously between visions and utopians and practical political solutions.
Right.
What is really important is that we need a new reality in Israel and Palestine. Israel today exercises 13 different legal systems in order to rule Palestinians, wherever they are, inside Israel, in the Greater Jerusalem area, in the Gaza Strip, and in the West Bank. All these 13 systems are worse than the apartheid system in South Africa. So if anyone knows of a different solution, even a 5-state solution, that promises that this discrimination, this systematic, legal, daily abuse of human and civil rights of Palestinians can be replaced by a more egalitarian system, I am willing to go with them. If it's a non-state solution, if it's a 16-state solution, I think we should not be too hung on this idea of one state or two states, and not to forget why do we want it. I mean, the means are, the state is only in fascism, and Israel is moving towards its fascist space now. Only in fascism, a state becomes more important than the objects it was supposed to serve. We want a state if it solves our human problems. The present state of Israel does not allow any Palestinian basic human rights and civil rights. If anyone knows of a better political system, may they rise and tell us and how best we can do it. Now, we are moving between these two options. We've tried one of them with the help of the superpowers of the world. It didn't work. It doesn't work. It's time to think of an alternative one.
I just add a pennyworth to that. Yes. I mean, do you see any future for...
No, look, I'm sorry, Alan, but I'm rather irritated. Talking about one-state, two-state solutions reminds me of what I learned at school about scholastic discussions. How many angels could dance on the spire of a church? Would it be 1? Would it be 2? Would it be 13? It's all... look, there's only one answer. It is a completely asymmetric conflict, but there are two main causes of it. First of all, it's occupation. Stupid. It's occupation. It is 42 years of occupation. I've lived under 12. Terrible. But I saw the end of the tunnel, and the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's racism, stupid. I talked about Nulich, and I quoted the instructions for the soldiers how to treat Palestinians. It is flagrant racism, and it's occupation. And as long as the world does not put pressure on Israel, it will never be
Let me
solved.
take up the pressure question, because this brings President Obama into the picture. For the sake of discussion, let's suppose that President Obama can create within America the constituency of understanding that will enable him to put real pressure, even sanctions on America. My question is this: if he did, could it be assumed that any government of Israel would then say, okay, Mr. President, we'll do what you want? Jonathan.
I think an American ought to answer that.
Okay, for sure.
First of all, carrying on with what Roger said, where does all the money go that goes into the Palestinian Authority and into Hamas? Millions and millions and millions of pounds over years and years. Do you know what they need? And I say this to Elon and to Hacho. They need a Mandela. They need a great leader. Where are the leaders of that part of the world and of the Palestinians? They need an Obama. They need leadership. When charity money comes into Israel, it goes into schools, into hospitals, into opera houses. There are more art galleries on every corner in Israel than in the whole of Africa and the Middle East.
What's that got to do with ending occupation?
Because what Obama is going to say to these people, as he said in his Cairo speech, every time Israel left,
even Obama talked about occupation.
When Rabin was negotiating the Oslo Treaty, whenever someone left Nablus or Bethlehem or wherever, a bomb went off. Occupation, if Gaza is under this cudgel of Israel, why are rockets, thousands of rockets coming into southern Israel and kids living in bomb shelters?